Welcome everybody to this session on how to sell more low and no beer in your pub. I'm Laura from Club Soda, and I'll just explain a little bit about who we are. We're a mindful drinking movement. We do the mindful drinking festivals. We've now done 5 of those, with a big one in Truman Brewery in January, which was an amazing festival of all of the great low and no alcohol drinks that are out there. But our overall aim is to create a world where nobody feels out of place not drinking. And that might be about how we feel in ourselves, being able to go out and socialise without drinking. And we've got 30,000 members who are all changing their drinking habits, whether that's to cut down, stop for a bit, or go alcohol-free. And then we also have our venue guide, which there's some information about on your seats, and I'll tell you a little bit more about later. And we also now do research and work with pubs and bars. And this particular session has been fueled by some funding that we've had from the Worshipful Company of Brewers through the Brewers Research and Education Fund. I feel somehow that I'm winning at life when I'm talking about low and no alcohol, and I've managed to get some money out of brewers to do some research on it. I feel it's really exciting for the first time that they've put some money into this particular space. But I think don't have to look very hard to see that the trends around low and no alcohol are increasing, and the sales of alcohol-free beer are going through the roof at the minute. And you just had to look at the front of the Daily Mail today, which, you know, if like me, you might not want to, but it talks about the fact that the number of people reducing the amount they drink is at an all-time high. So there's definitely something occurring, as they would say in the West Country. So that's a little bit about who we are. Now, you could say that this could be a storm in a teacup around the sales of low and no alcohol beers. We did an event with Pete Brown in January, and he said there have been many times where people have talked about that now is the time for alcohol-free beer, and nothing has really come of it. What makes it different this time is that I think there's a whole combination of factors at play. Firstly, you know, the sales are going in the right direction and quite rapidly. And people are beginning to talk about that surprise increase. The demographics are changing. So journalists like to write about a lot of younger people changing their drinking habits, mainly because most journalists around my age, and they can't believe there's a whole generation that don't drink as much as they do, quite frankly. But it's actually a cross-generational shift. You've got younger people drinking less to begin with. You've got people my age, you know, in their early to mid-40s, that ladette generation. You know, I was never seen without a pint in my hand because that was equalities. And they're beginning to realise that you can eat as much kale as you like, go to the gym as often as you like, but if you're packing away a bottle of wine in the evening, then you're undoing all that hard work. And then you've actually got a load of people recognising that if they've got particular health conditions, type 2 diabetes being one, that they need to shift their drinking patterns. I'm really constantly surprised by the number of people who have been die-hard camera members, for example, turning up at some of our beer tastings because they know they have to shift what they drink but still want to appreciate a really good beer. So there's a whole mix of demographic shifts, and it's important not to just focus on those of younger people. Then there's an acceptability. So Carlsberg did some research before Christmas that said actually people are feeling far more comfortable about asking for an alcohol-free beer, that their mates wouldn't give them jip if they asked for an alcohol-free beer. They're feeling it's more socially acceptable to ask for that. So again, these are small shifts, but they're all about giving people permission to do something different. And then there's the taste. The taste in this sector has changed, and that is in part to do with the change in technology, but it's also about the amount of investment of time and money that some of the brewers are putting in. And so I'll show you a little bit of first bit of video.
This is Big Drop, who are really changing the face of alcohol-free beer. One of the reasons why is because, as you'll see, they've got a massive range of beers. In particular, they've got a stout. And the stout, I would recommend you try the stout. If you're a dark beer lover, try the stout. It is amazing. I'm, as well as writing about beer, I also judge beer. And I was judging in the World Beer Awards, and Big Drop Stout gained a prize, a silver, I think, in a category. It wasn't in an alcohol-free category. It was in a full alcohol category. It got the silver medal, and we blind taste everything, so we didn't know. And it got the silver medal in the World Beer Awards. In the stout category. So yeah, if you're a dark beer lover, really do try that.
So, of course, if you're used to seeing alcohol-free beer, if you knew about Caliber back in the day and everyone went, oh, Caliber, then you hear that a beer's won an award against full-strength beer, you know something's changing in terms of taste. And these beers, all of these beers in this sector are beginning to prove that the quality is better. And to me, that's a really defining point, which is quite ironic how I talk about this, right? Because I never drank beer as an alcoholic product. I have to tell you, I've only ever drunk alcohol-free beer. But it helps me make the case for the whole of this sector, be it a cider, so I've got the Brack cider here, or for the alcohol-free botanicals and so on. Technology and taste is improving, and that's the thing that's helping tip this trend over the edge. So I mentioned that we've got some money from the Worshipful Company of Brewers to look at how to improve the sales of low and no alcohol beer. So one of the things that we've noticed when we were going around talking to pubs to populate the first version of our guide is that product knowledge is really poor, as you would expect with anything new in the market, and that pubs don't know how to sell it. Because when somebody walks in and says, oh, what have you got that's alcohol-free? It's like a Pavlovian response to top of that Coke and lemonade hose and say, well, we've got Coke and lemonade, and then blah, 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 they trail off. They might even have some exciting soft drinks in the fridge, but you know, the bar staff's energy seems to disappear after they've tapped the top of the Coke and lemonade. And I don't want to be served Coke out of a hose. Sorry, but that's not an evening out to me. That's not an experience. And even if I did drink it, I could only manage 1 pint of Coke in an evening, and then you'd be completely sugared out. You couldn't manage anything else. And it doesn't go with most food. So it would completely wipe out any beautiful food that you've done for me. So I was really interested in how we could stop venues automatically tapping the top of that hose and beginning to navigate staff and customers a little bit more around the products that they've got. Because we know that the more confident you are about a product behind the bar, the more you will sell of that product. And you need to know that as soon as somebody comes in and asks for a lime and soda, it's not because all day they've been looking forward to a lime and soda. It's because they don't think you have anything else. Everyone's expectation of what you have in your pub is universally known to be such a low expectation that they don't even bother asking anymore. And so in this category of the new low and no drinks, we need to do a little bit more navigating, a little bit more exciting the customer, a little bit more answering of their questions. So we've been doing some experiments. Stu here, who's videoing this, has been doing those experiments. And actually, Adrian Childs, for some, who, if any of you saw his documentary about drinkers like me, has become such a big fan in this sector that he's been like recruiting places for us to go and do experiments. We can't quite keep up. But we've been doing trying to look at how we improve sales in different settings. So we've been looking at how London City Runners, which is London's biggest running club, has just got its own venue, and everyone turns up after the run, has a pint of water, and then fucks off home. No good for them, they've just paying rent on a venue. So we've been looking at how bringing in a beer that's suitable for that venue and making sure that people know about it might make them stay longer afterwards. And you do have to work hard to let people know that you've got something. You can't just stick it behind the bar and expect it to be there. You actually have to actively tell people, tell them by email that you've got something for them, remind them as they arrive for their run in this particular occasion, and so on. But and also let them know that this is better for them as a runner than a fizzy drink. In fact, beer is brilliant for you once it hasn't got the alcohol in it. It's full of vitamin B12, 66 calories, no added sugar. Boom, job done, every diet covered. We've been looking at how better choice of alcohol-free beers can make your venue feel more inclusive and welcoming. And we've been doing an experiment with the SOAS University, who have got a very diverse student population, huge number of students from Muslim countries, and looking at how we might be able to navigate, the staff might be able to navigate their students depending on their tastes around different types of beer. So we've been doing a tasting, asking people what type of beer they normally drink and giving them the alcohol-free equivalent and seeing if that increases people's interest. We've been doing a test of alcohol-free beer on draft, so there's some big drop in at a number of venues across the country, and we're tracking the improvement of sales and tracking the challenges that the staff have found around selling alcohol-free beer, because obviously draft is the thing that everyone is really keen to see. And we've been looking at upselling opportunities. I think restaurants are worse than pubs at all of this. It's so acceptable to go into a restaurant and only drink tap water with your meal, and staff don't upsell anything. They don't have any targets to upsell you from a tap water to an alcohol-free beer. So we've put the first alcohol-free beer into a restaurant in Soho and seeing how he's getting on with that and having some targets around upselling. We don't have all the results from these yet because they're still in field, but they're all based on insights that we found from talking to people, to talking to you guys, talking to over 400 pubs in Hackney and City of London about what those challenges are, and we'll be sharing some more of those results with you. But there's a very good reason for doing this, which is it's all about what I would consider an equality of experience, about creating those diverse social spaces where everybody feels welcome. To me, this is just another dietary preference along with being vegan, but it's still actually more possible in London in particular to get a vegan meal than it is to get an alcohol-free beer. Why can't I get the full package, really? So the customer really counts, and here's one particular customer.
Well, I just want to get alcohol-free and low-alcohol beer into the mainstream. It seems barking mad to me that alcohol-free beer isn't more widely available, and low-alcohol, sort of 2% beer. Why isn't there? It doesn't make sense, because I'm sure there'd be a demand for it. I've been sort of doing their marketing for them, trying to talk everyone I speak to into trying some alcohol-free beer as well as sort of ordinary beer. What seems to work with people is not getting alcohol-free beer to say drink that instead of ordinary beer, but saying don't see it as an alternative to beer, see it as an alternative to water or sugary drinks or whatever else you can drink.
So again, it's that message about an upsale from a soft kids drink to a grown-up drink. And when you've got Adrian Childs talking about this now to every football club in the country about why they don't have a better range of alcohol-free beers, we know that we can begin to shift this trend a little bit harder and a little bit faster and make sure that everybody feels included in those occasions and in those social spaces. So what have we learnt so far? Because like I said, we've still got some of these experiments in trial, but we will have a report and it will be widely available because making that available to all of you is really important. But we know that navigation and promotion of alcohol-free beer is really important. Recognising that your customers are only expecting a compromised drink and to actively upsell when they ask for a Coke, a lemonade or a lime and soda. Understanding that that's a behaviour and answering some of the questions. So you definitely, try the product yourself, know how many calories are in it, know what the ingredients are so that you can say, you're on a sugar-free diet. Excellent, alcohol-free beer next to water is the healthiest thing that you can drink in a pub. Job done. So, you've got really great ways to be able to sell the product. They're also being proud of the product behind your bar. The minute you go, well, we've got this alcohol-free beer, you're not selling it to anyone. And actually, these are beers that you can now be proud of. They've got beautiful branding, they've got great taste. There's not just one beer, there's a beer to suit every type of beer drinker in your pub. And then being able to offer samples to overcome cynicism. I do think it's partly why we did the festival to begin with, because we know, right, here's something that is probably a bit of a no-brainer, but we will buy anything if it's got alcohol in, even if we've not tried it before and know we like it. I know we like to pretend we're really discerning and we have our favourites, but, ultimately, if there's something we've never tried before in the shop, we will pick it up as long as it's got alcohol in. We won't do that with alcohol-free. People won't spend £1.50 on an alcohol-free drink unless they know they like it. So you've got a slightly different customer behaviour. And so being able to help people try a product, navigate them around it, not only means that you can move them away from that Coke and lemonade where they can only have one in a night, to an alcohol-free beer or cider or alcohol-free botanical where they could drink 5 in a night. And that's a really important part of that, or that goes well with their food, so that their food experience becomes better. And when you do that for somebody who isn't drinking in your venue in the evening, I can tell you their love for you increases tenfold. Their loyalty to you as a pub goes through the roof. They will always suggest their mates, actually, could we go to this pub because there's something for me to drink there. So don't underestimate the impact of that customer service, that level of interest in what they're going to drink in terms of loyalty and that quality of experience. And I do think, if we're going to create great social spaces where people want to come and spend money, then having something for everybody is really important. And here's why from a pub chain itself.
And I actually today took the time to pull off some numbers because I thought it's all very well me having my personal opinion, but let's actually see if it's been working and how they were selling back then in comparison to now. And it was really interesting actually. In 2017, so I looked at the last 6 months, which is when we really started deciding to push this. So from June 2017 to December 2017. So at the time, I couldn't get any low ABV products on draft. There may have been some out there, but route to market is another issue within on-trade. And at the time, I couldn't find anything on draft, so that was gone. Within the PPL market, like I said, so the pre-packaged lagers, we now had 10. And in that last 6 months of that year, we sold almost 6,000 units. That equated to over £20,000 worth of sales, so definitely not to be sniffed at. And by the end of 2017, they were making up 4% of our total PPL market, which is pretty big. So we realised that we were onto something, and that it wasn't just my boss. There were people out there that wanted to drink proper, grown-up, low ABV beers and enjoy them at the pub. Because the other thing that we also know is that actually the number of visits to the pub is on the rise. So it's not that people don't want to go to the pub, it's just about making sure there's something there for them to drink. So off the back of this, I decided that we would try and expand the range even further. So again, long story short, by the end of last year, we now have over 20 PPLs listed that our sites can order from. And we encourage them, we do have the likes of Heineken Zero on there, and we do have Big Drop, and we do have Fitzbin, we do have Adnams Ghost Ship. But what we want to make sure is that the pubs are able to choose names and products that suit their demographic, because all our pubs are very different. And the numbers this year are astonishing, and I think that they really do show that there is a trend, which is why ultimately we stock them. So Ghost Ship came to the market in June, and we brought it into our business. Like I said, we don't force any pubs to take it, so the only pubs that took it were the ones that they felt had a niche and a market. Within that first 6 months of us having Adnams Ghost Ship on draft, we sold 2,500 pints, which equated to £8,500 worth of sales. Within the PPL market, we sold within this 6 months, compared to the previous year, which was nearly 6,000 bottles, this year we'd sold 14,300. And that equated to almost £50,000 worth of sales. And looking at it in terms of a percentage, because our business has grown massively, so not to cloud it, looking at it as a percentage of the PPL market, it's gone up by over 50%. So we're now over 6% of our PPL market is now within the low ABV range. So that's why we do it, essentially. It's because there are a growing number of people out there who want to be able to have a grown-up drink that isn't a Coke off a gun, or an orange juice, or even a soda and lime.
So that's Gemma Caitlin from City Pub Group. So for her, this is something they're investing more and more time in, and is a growing market for them, and they're really interested in what they can get on their shelves. So what can you do in your venue? Do find the right brands for you. There are loads out there. Really be pushy on wholesalers. I think wholesalers are the biggest gatekeepers in this space and are stopping us getting the product we want on shelves. It's a whole nother discussion point. So find the right brands for you. There are a few here today, actually. You've got Heineken 00 on a blade system on the Star Pub stand. You've got Brax here. You've got Big Drop here. Sheppies have got their alcohol-free cider here. So give all of those a go. Do train your staff. There isn't the money in this space yet, like there is in the alcohol sector, for there to be lots of different training that comes from the wholesalers on this. So do train your staff and talk about the quality of the experience for your customers as well as knowing about the product. Do set some sales targets. If you've got sales targets around how many desserts you're going to get out the kitchen and how many beers you're going to sell, have some sales targets around your alcohol-free as well. And remember that alcohol-free beer is an upsell from a Coke and lemonade, not a downsell from a real beer. Be positive about it, know where it sits. Like I said, let customers know what you have and actively take the time to navigate them and offer those samples if you can. I would say equalise your special offers. If you do a happy hour with 2 beers for the price of 1, do make that 2 alcohol-free beers for the price of 1 as well. I'm really pissed off that in Dalston, right, there's a place that does a pizza I really like, and you can buy a beer and pizza for less money than a piece of pizza on its own. And so I end up paying more for 1 piece of pizza than somebody who buys an alcoholic beer. I'd happily have an alcohol-free beer with that piece of pizza, please. You know, so think about how you do special offers and do an alcohol-free version of that special offer. Be demanding of your suppliers, so that's the wholesalers, and run specials and events. I can tell you we run an alcohol-free pop-up bar once a month in Soho, and people are really, really, really interested in these drinks. They really want to come and try them. So on a Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday night when you're a bit quieter, run an alcohol-free beer tasting and find out what your customers want behind the bar, or do, you know, or run a botanicals tasting, or do a particular event and find out what your customers want. But most of all, try the product. This is Chris. He had Nanny State on his bar for over a year before we forced him to try it on video.
So here we have Brewdog Nanny State, which is 0 alcohol beer. Just going to try that now. I haven't actually tried it yet. I heard very good things about it. I'm sure it'll be good. I really like beer. It's better than I thought it was going to be. I was pretty sceptical about it.
So, you know, tasting it, and then your staff become the advocates, and actually having a good alcohol-free beer and alcohol-free drinks on your bar is good for your staff's health as well, so don't always, it's about them too. We want to make our recommendations go further than just what you should do in your pub, because I think there are things that others can change. I'm really interested in how we can engage customers beyond review. There's a big review culture, which you must all get really pissed off with, right? But we can engage people beyond that in different ways by doing tastings, asking customers what it is that they want to see behind the bar and being responsive. And I'll talk to you about the guide in a moment. I think the industry needs to support this emerging sector more. In Spain and Germany, they've invested lots of money in supporting the growth of alcohol-free beer. I don't see why we shouldn't be doing the same here. There's all sorts of technological issues and perception issues that we need to overcome, and we need some money to come this way. Wholesalers need to be more disruptive. If anyone here is from a wholesaler, sort it out, guys. It's you know, it feels like it's still in the middle of the 1990s where technology and ordering is concerned. The government needs to sort out its low and no labelling. It's a long discussion. It could take me an hour to talk to you about that issue on its own, but the government has a lot to do in this space. And I'm really keen that we campaign the government to take VAT off alcohol-free drinks in venues, partly because the sugar tax has put the price of soft drinks up, so it's disproportionate, but also making an alcohol-free beer is more expensive than making an alcoholic one, because you don't have that automatic flavour enhancer called alcohol in it. And it's also alcohol's also a preservative, and of course you need different things in an alcohol-free beer to keep it good. So actually we need to respect the fact that most of these products cost more to make. So you've got on your seats a leaflet about the guide, but even better, go on your phone. You've got permission in a talk to go on a phone, type in clubsodaguide.com. We've built the first guide for mindful drinkers. It's a crowdsourced guide. It has over 600 alcohol-free products on it, and that list is growing all the time. That represents about 200 brands who've got products in this space. And it's currently got about 5,500 venues on it, and we're adding new venues all the time. And basically, you can find an alcohol-free drink and where to buy it, both in the pub, and next week an update comes up so we can tell you where you can buy that retail, and most importantly for you guys, where you can buy that wholesale. So you can begin to explore those drinks. And this is a guide that we are taking out to the public, asking them to tell us their favourite and best venues that they found for low and no alcohol. And then when they tell us that venue, we'll contact you, sign you up. And then if you score well on the guide, because there's an automatic scoring system there based on what you stock, we want to do some local publicity with you. So if you're the first pub in Winchester to come on our guide, we want to blast all of the local media in Winchester to say, this is the leading venue in this area for mindful drinkers. If you're looking for a night out where there's some good options or a lunchtime meeting spot, then this is the place to go. If you've got a small chain of venues, come and see us. We can help you get your venues up on there. If you've got a big chain as well, then come and see us. We can help get all of your venues up on there in one go or help you do that. But we will be, all of this year, using this as a way to promote those venues that have got a really good selection of alcohol-free drinks. And like I said, it's this has been funding in different ways, and Heineken has put some money into this as well. So you can personalise your venue's profile page, list the brands you have in stock. It's got geolocation so people can put in their postcode and find where they are near you. They can even type in, Big Drop, Brax, or whatever the brand is, and you be able to find whether somewhere near them stocks it. And you get a nice little window sticker to go on your pub and onto your website if you want to be able to put that up. And like I said, we're really keen to do localised media, and we've got loads of members who want to talk about how they have nominated your pub as a customer in a local area. So it makes for a great personal interest story in local media. So do come and sign up. And most of all, we can talk about health in this space. We can talk about how we shouldn't drink so much. But for me, the very bottom line of all of this is about a diversity of choice is good for everyone. And this creates spaces where everybody feels welcome as a customer. And for me, that's the future of where our venues are, how we keep our pubs and our social spaces alive by making sure everyone feels 100% welcome in that space and nobody's ever taken the piss out of asking for an alcohol-free beer. Thank you. And there's a little bit of time for questions, right? Has anyone got any questions?
Hi, does that work? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Nick. I work for Adnams, actually on Ghost Ship Alcohol Free.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you. It was actually really nice. I didn't have those stats from City Pub Group, so thanks for that. I've been asking for a while, so that's great. I'd be really keen to know, and sorry if you've already covered it, but I came in late, what kind of objections you or anyone here that has a pub is getting from maybe the consumer or from kind of landlords on stocking alcohol free? What kind of challenges you're being presented with?
There are some interesting questions about shelf space. Everyone says they don't have the space for it. Which means actually there are other discussions to be had in this space. For example, I think we need to start promoting good quality cordials in pubs and bars, because at the minute some pre-made cordials take up some of that fridge space, things like an elderflower topped up with fizzy water, but that doesn't need to live on the shelf. It can live out of the fridge somewhere else, and it can make more room for alcohol-free beer. There is discussion around price point. Customers do ask about price point, but if you've got a strong discussion point, like Adnams is using cutting-edge technology, it costs more to make this beer, it's made in not as big quantities at the moment. Actually, in venue, on average, only 20p of a drink is the alcohol tax in the end. And guess what, guys? You can drink this, have a lovely evening, still drive home, not feel sugared out. You won't buy kebab. So there's a saving. Way, no saving on taxi, hooray. So have that discussion with customers as well. People want to try because they've still got a long memory and think of all of bad things. And often people, when they think they're not drinking, go automatically to a soft drink. So the thought of going for an alcohol-free beer needs a little bit of a jump for them as well. We've also been into pubs where, we've got reports of pubs where one of our members asked for an alcohol-free beer and the guy behind the bar said, "No, we don't have alcohol-free beer, and I wish people would stop asking." Well, that tells you something. So again, bar staff are the can be some of the biggest barriers. So them understanding the context of an alcohol-free drink, who might be drinking it, reminding people that you're paying rent on a venue 24/7 and lunchtime trade is also important. We're doing some training materials around all of this as part of the beer research project. So hopefully we'll have something that you can use very easily in your venues that makes the case and isn't, is somebody else adding into that. We're happy for you to tell us any other objections you've heard so we can make sure we cover that in our training materials. Cool. There's a question here.
Hello. It's loud.
Very loud.
So, for something to be no alcohol, what's the percentage?
So 0.5% is alcohol-free everywhere across the world,
Yeah.
apart from just in the UK if your product's made in the UK at the moment. You don't need a licence to sell anything that's 0.5% and below.
But could you have a no alcohol beer that's got 0? Because obviously, if you're not drinking for religious reasons, then obviously 0.3 is still not good enough.
I have to tell you, nothing in the world is 0.
Okay.
Coca-Cola is 0.05.
So it isn't
Fentimans ginger beer
necessarily
is
going to
0.5.
address like a Muslim who can't drink alcohol.
If you're a Muslim, you will go for a 0.0 product. The chances are you also won't go for a de-alkalised product. So Adnams is a de-alkalised beer. But some Muslims might go for a Heineken because it's not de-alkalised. It hasn't ever had alcohol in.
Okay.
Some Muslims just wouldn't go for anything that looks like beer because they've never drunk it. But they still want, if you go to any of the shops in a Muslim, I live in Newham, so if you go to any of the shops there are premium packaged, bottles that look like champagne of alcohol-free products. And so that says to me that people want something that denotes the difference between this is what I'll drink during the day to refresh myself. I want something nice in the evening that is an experience that makes me feel part of the occasion, that feels special. The way there's a green tea, a sparkling green tea that's flying off the shelves at Fortnum & Mason, and there's a large number of Muslim customers who are buying that because it looks like champagne and it's, £15 a bottle. So yes, Muslim customers will avoid things and they will make those decisions, but you will have other things on your shelf for them as well. Does that make sense? There's a question here.
So you spoke a lot about no alcohol beers. Where do you see sort of for the next year things like low alcohol spirits and maybe like aperitifs and things like that coming into the market?
So that's a really big growth category is in alcohol-free spirits. I think I haven't got the sales stats in my head, but they've grown quite significantly. And we did a botanicals tasting here yesterday. Again, people can. I think the reason why beer has grown so quickly is because actually there is a history of low alcohol beer in the UK. We actually used to drink it not at 7 and 8%. We did used to drink it at very low ABVs. Getting people used to the idea of an alcohol-free spirit, where you often drink a spirit because it's a high ABV and because you get that hit, is a different sell. But it's still a growth area because people are looking at how you use that, particularly in cocktails. People love cocktails because cocktails are an experience on a night out, look awesome on Instagram, and people are interested that you've found an interesting ingredient to put in that cocktail as a base rather than just packing it full of sugary juices. So again, I think there's a space. I think there'll be more dark spirits coming onto the market next year in the alcohol-free. Strike have already brought an alcohol-free rum on, but there's definitely more investment going in that. Again, a little bit more education with the customer needed, but there's still growth. I'm personally trying to make sure that there's growth in the cider category because that was what my drink was. But you're also getting kombucha on tap. Green King have just put kombucha in behind a load of their bars. And that's an even harder drink to explain than a botanical, actually. So I think there's lots of space and there's lots of room. There's lots of experimenting to do here. I think there's a good space for shandies as well, some really good quality shandies. Square Root do some amazing collaboration shandies, and I can see where their place is. So there's still lots of room for growth and definitely lots of room for drink types. And obviously I've got my little cordial challenge going on so that we can free up some space in that fridge.
Thank you. Hi, sort of following on from this chap's query, it's been really interesting hearing about how you're marketing and everything, but I'm from the wine side and we're finding it really, really hard to find a dry white wine that doesn't taste shit.
Yes. Okay, so...
Sorry, non-alcoholic dry white wine that doesn't taste.
So nearly all of the wines obviously go through a de-alcoholization process, and so that's interesting in itself in terms of labelling. And actually, the labelling issue stopped a few products coming onto the market already this year, which really annoys me. Some brands were going to launch onto the market in January and then pulled back because they didn't know what to do about the labelling stuff. I guess what I've learned so far, and you have to respect I'm not an expert in totally in the industry, not only does wine take longer to make, and so I think there might be some stuff coming through a bit later that might satisfy that need in the market. But also the wine sector here, the way it's organised works very differently. You've got people representing different wine companies, and the wine industry still doesn't know what to do with this type of product, so it hasn't been going out looking. Some of the wine importers clearly have some alcohol-free wines, which is the stuff that they have for people who don't drink, rather than seeing it as, right, here's what a product we've got that can now move people from a Coke and lemonade that will go with a meal so that the sommelier doesn't have to walk away from my table when I say I'm not drinking. This is a good product in its own right. And they need to get over that psychological barrier to begin with as well. I also think technology is changing in wine, and I've definitely tasted some samples of some products that are coming through that are really nice, that are a lot drier. I liked my wine dry. I also think sparkling seems to de-alcoholise a lot better. So the Scavi and Ray, for example, I think is one of the better Proseccos and so on. I would love to do some more research about wine. So if anybody knows anyone in the Wine and Spirit Trade Association or anyone, we could do some stuff. And I think there's some really interesting stuff. The other is bottle size. So pubs don't want to open a whole bottle of wine for one customer a week who might want to have a glass of alcohol-free wine, but you might have half bottles or single-serve bottles. And that doesn't seem to be available here, but I go to Finland and there's half bottles of alcohol-free wine, good quality alcohol-free wine everywhere. So yeah, another education discussion. People's perceptions around wine slightly different to beer, and we need to be able to educate the public around, the fact that just like ordinary wine, alcoholic wine, you get what you pay for, and so you need to have different wines at different price points. So much to say about wine, but yes, you are right, and I'm hoping it's changing. I'd like to help change that. Anyone else got a question? Cool, this gentleman here.
Do you do any sort of blind tasting whereby you give people a beer and the alcohol equivalent and see if they can tell the difference? Is that a sensible thing? I don't know.
You will see Emma Inch on that video when they did the blind tasting for the World Beer Awards. That was a blind tasting that picked a beer. I don't always recommend doing a taste comparison test, partly because they are different products. You won't get the hit of alcohol that comes and then triggers in your brain, and so it's not always a fair test. But I have spoken to some people who have done taste tests where they are and have found that their staff can't tell the difference between the products. But generally, I like to get people to, instead of doing a taste comparison with alcohol, is to begin to taste the different range of beers. Because we do this thing as well, which is we go, if you go and buy a beer in a pub, they will say, well, what type of beer do you want? But you go and ask for an alcohol-free beer, and you get a choice of one. And then people go, oh, I don't like alcohol-free beer. And you say, well, did you ever like a stout? And they go, no, I never drank stout when I was drinking. And so you need to say, well, actually, you need to find the type of beer that is the equivalent to the beer that you used to drink, whether it's a pale ale, a brown ale, or whatever, an IPA, and try those to find the one that you like. Because if you still try a style of beer that you didn't like, you're not going to like the alcohol-free version. And I know it sounds like a bit of a no-brainer, but that's what happens. People go, oh, no, I just don't like any alcohol-free beer because I tried an IPA. But if they never drank an IPA, then that's a bad taste test.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to hang around after if anyone wants to ask me any questions as well. Anyone wants to come to our festival next time as well, we're going to try and do some more around the country this year. It's going to be really exciting. Hopefully in Bristol we'll do a cider challenge and finally get there with the cider. So, cool. All right, everyone, thank you so much for your time.